Today's secular education system is an agenda from hell. Now, I know that might seem like another sensational title for a daily dose, but let's dive in and see what's really been happening. You see, while America wasn't paying attention, the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic were largely replaced by what? Secular humanism, moral relativism, and an antichrist agenda all the way from our grade schools, high schools, and definitely into the universities. You see, back in the day, our public education system not only taught the 3 R's, but the textbooks even included topics such as Christian foundations for life. But by June 25th, 1962, the U.S. Supreme Court declared school-sponsored prayers unconstitutional in that landmark case of Engel versus Vitale. And then in 1963, you got the Abington School District versus Shemp ruling, and it made the corporate reading of the Bible and the reciting of the Lord's Prayer unlawful in public schools. See, replaced with the religion of secular humanism, God, His presence, His truth, were no longer welcome in our public education system. And we've witnessed the results of this agenda from hell. I mean, the decline has been dramatic and dangerous. What happened? Well, quite simply, tragically, our education system rejected the wisdom that comes from God, and in doing so, became fools. As Psalm 14:1 says, it says that the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. And sadly, the system, this education system that's rejected God, is even taking our children and producing generations of fools who are bought into this evil and destructive agenda of secular humanism, sexual perversion, and now Marxism. And it all traces back to an antichrist spirit. Look, in our culture, we typically think of fools as simply people who are silly or naive or irresponsible. Thus, they're what? Foolish, right? However, the Bible presents the fool as one who rejects the Lord and has contempt for His ways. Proverbs 1:7 puts it this way and says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. See, fools don't fear the Lord. Rather, they mock Him. Proverbs 28:6 reminds us that whoever trusts in his own mind is a fool. Fools laugh at sin, Proverbs 14:9 says, and they despise the wisdom found in knowing the God of all wisdom. Proverbs 2:6-8 talks about that. I was reading a little bit of David Barton on this topic. He heads up Wall Builders. He has some statistics that show that things are really bad after removing prayer. After removing prayer and after removing God from our schools, teenage pregnancy rates have gone up 500% since 1962. Unmarried mothers have risen dramatically since 1962. The divorce rate is so high that many children, they don't even have an understanding of what a real family is. Violent crimes have risen steadily since the early 1960s, and our prison systems, they're bursting at the seams. It's become obvious. Remove God, remove prayer, remove the Bible, and replace God with moral relativism, and what happens? All hell breaks loose. Now, I'm not saying that every public school, and definitely not every public school teacher, is part of the problem. In fact, there are many public school teachers who love God and bring Him into their classroom while also not bringing in all that secular junk, right? That antichrist stuff. And to them I say, thank you. Thank you for standing strong in the midst of a difficult situation. But here's what I think is the biggest issue. Parents, you have a responsibility. We have a responsibility given to us by God. And we'll give an account on how we've trained up our children. And handing our kids over to a system that is going to indoctrinate them into moral relativism, secular humanism, Marxism, handing our kids over to that kind of a system that's going to lead our kids into perverted understanding of sexuality and gender, handing our kids over to a system that mocks God, that's malpractice on our part. It's dropping the ball, and it's the exact opposite of what God has entrusted us with. So what should we do about this? Well, I'll start by telling you some of what we did raising our kids. We didn't put our kids in this kind of secular environment. We homeschooled our children and also then enrolled them in strong Christian schools. And with the current condition of our education system, I encourage you to do the same. Our kids aren't experiments. And God never told us to use our kids as evangelism tools. Rather, He told us to raise them in the way they should go. Disciple them into truth, into Jesus. Now, I agree, we need to fix our public education system. But in the meantime, keeping our kids in the middle of it during this process of retooling, it's just too dangerous, and our kids are just too precious. Look, if you want to surround yourself with a community that approaches raising our children and educating our kids in this way, in the fear of the Lord, in the awe of God, then I invite you to join us at Evident Life Church here in the East Valley of Greater Phoenix. We even have a Christian education program that comes alongside our families with resources, support, encouragement, and even finances when needed. Let's do this together, and let's do it for God's glory.